MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred is not going to save you and I by forcing Jerry Reinsdorf to sell the White Sox. Let's discuss why next on Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert of Southside Showdown, part of the Fansided Network. You can check out my written content at southsideshowdown.com, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And also follow or subscribe to the show at wherever you get your podcasts. Hey, I love the YouTube comments and the discussion that is growing in our community. But one trend I see is the hope that Rob Manfred will force Sox owner Jerry Reinsdorf to sell a team. I want to discuss why that would never happen in the first segment. Then in the second segment, let's hop into it taking 2 months for someone to take the team lead in home runs from Paul DeJong. And finally, I got a guest tomorrow, so let's do a retro segment today with some appreciation for Magglio Ordonez. And now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, Rob Manfred can barely save baseball, so there is no way in heck he is saving the White Sox. I appreciate the idea and the pleas, but this is a commissioner who has owner Jerry Reinsdorf as one of his bosses. Jerry is one of his 30 bosses, okay? And the last time any commissioner challenged the owners, well, ask Faye Vincent how he got forced out. Manfred is too busy making the game quirky, like trying to implement innings on starters to make the pitching start more honorable again. And again, that would be one of the worst things to happen to baseball if you put a 5-inning pitch limit to starters or say 100 pitches. And not only that, with the way that these guys' arms are breaking down, you would be needing, like, I would say at least 12 to 15 starters a season. And you really think owners want to pay that, even if it's just per diem money or prorated bonus or prorated contracts? I don't think so. And it's a great idea to imagine the commissioner with his broad powers, especially to use the best interest of the game clause to sweep out cheap owners who refuse to spend to field competitive teams. It's a great idea. It's an ideal, but it ain't going to happen. If he hasn't forced out A's owner Jacob Fisher or Arte Moreno or Los Angeles Angels owner Arte Moreno yet, he's unlikely to end Jerry Reinsdorf's 43 years of mostly failure as the owner. You know, the Sox fan base is not the only group to suggest a commissioner remove an owner. Bill Shaken of the LA Times wrote a scathing column back in July about, hopefully Manfred doing something to get rid of Arte Moreno. And here's what he wrote about the idea of Manfred saving the Angels. Fans cannot be taken for granted. Commissioner Rob Manfred should be very concerned that a team in the second largest market in North America is about to extend its streak of consecutive years without a postseason victory to 15 years. Its streak of consecutive years without a postseason appearance to 10 years. Quote, Arte, I think, has worked hard over the years to be competitive as possible, Manfred told me Tuesday. He runs a fan-centric business operation in Anaheim. The results on the field are the results on the field. I think Arte Moreno wants to win. He is committed to winning. His desire to win is as strong as any of the owners, end quote. You know, first of all, I'm tired of hearing about owners' desires to win. There's only, honestly, I can only count on my hand about 5 owners who have a desire to win. One of the worst things about baseball right now is a lot of these owners are treating these teams as part of their investment portfolio. And the one thing that I agree with the Players Association, I believe it was Ian Happ a couple years back, he was on the Score talking about it. These owners have money. Now, you know, I don't agree with the Players Union that everybody should just be spending their wealth. I mean, if you earn your money, you earn your money. And I get it's billionaires. We can get into all the politics. And I know people got mad at me yesterday for not saying Cleveland's previous name. But what I'm saying is I would like owners, yes, to be more like Steve Cohen or like the former San Diego's Padres deceased owner who look at it and say, you know what? This is just another yacht. You know, it's a figurative yacht. And I want it to be the best yacht in the marina. You know, I love that. But can we just stop saying a lot of these owners want to win when they just look at it as a business opportunity? I mean, I believe during the lockout, wasn't it the St. Louis Cardinals owner talking about like all the money that has to be put in, and there's really not much of an investment opportunity there. That if you're looking at it as an investment opportunity, get the bleep out then, and talk about it. Manfred's complimenting an owner who had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani on his team and never made the playoffs. So what makes anyone think he would force Jerry Reinsdorf out of the game? And Manfred is the worst commissioner, in my opinion, of all time. The only accomplishment he's had is he instituted the pitch clock. And yes, I'm a big fan of the pitch clock, but it's because I have covered a lot of games back in the day when I was covering games. And there's nothing worse than that game that just goes on for 4 hours with all the pitching changes, and then it goes in extra innings. I know some of you purists love it. It's not fun. Trust me. So I love the pitch clock. But other than that, not much else. Oh, and he did bring at least Theo Epstein in to help improve the game. But otherwise, he's done nothing to stop baseball from becoming a regional sport, because that's what baseball has become now. It's regional. If your area has a baseball team, you might have a fan base. Otherwise, it has been totally fallen off the national radar. Do you really think it's a national pastime? I think it's only a name only. I'm sorry for the hot take there, but football has lapped it by 3 at least. And the NBA, you look at all the money that they're getting in their TV contracts, because the NBA has become a national sport because it has superstars, because it markets its superstars. Where MLB and its cheap owners, they don't want superstars because that means they have to pay them. Instead of realizing, hey, this is how we're going to grow. This is how we're going to become the national pastime again. Because you don't have steroids to hit, to get players to hit home runs to draw in fans. You got to think of something else. And under Manfred, there hasn't been much thought. There's really no marketing of stars outside of Shohei Ohtani. And he's not been able to get his hands around the decline of the regional sports networks. And that is going to lead to possibly the worst labor battle since 1994. I hope you enjoy next season, even though for the White Sox, it's probably going to be even worse. That labor battle for 2026 is shaping up to be a long slog where we might not have baseball. I mean, that is something we have to put out there. And remember, he was Bud Selig's hand-picked replacement. And who is Bud tight with? Jerry. The only thing that is going to save you and I from the mostly failed Jerry Reinsdorf ownership tenure is one of the known certainties in life, catching up with the chairman. And I'm not talking about taxes. And that is when the team will be sold. And hopefully it is sold to an owner with deep pockets. Mark Cuban, you want to buy a baseball team? Willing to see a legacy and a rare investment opportunity, because you could build that stadium on the 78. Yes, it's a great opportunity. I agree. I just don't agree that $1.7 billion should come out of taxpayers' hardworking, out of their pockets. So you get a guy or a girl, or you get a guy or a woman with deep pockets that's willing to spend more than $200 million to build that new stadium. An owner who also sees the value of staying in the third biggest market. Because I don't think the Sox would ever leave. I don't think an owner would really look at it and say, you know what, I want to go to Nashville. Yes, it's an emerging market, but you're dropping way down in market size. And you could say, well, technically that's the market size that you have right now with your fan base. How about you actually understand that you could thrive in Chicago, even if you're sharing it with the Cubs? Understand that if you build it, and by build it, I mean a winner. And yes, it would be nice to have, either that nice new stadium on the 78, or how about this, build Comiskeyville. But if you build it, they will come. An owner that gets, I would love to have an owner that gets that the Cubs, yeah, they got a loyal fan base. And they might have the majority of Chicago in terms of fandom, but it's because of Wrigley Field and generational ties. And the Sox, hey, you do have a loyal fan base. And a new baseball fan is born in Chicago every single day. So draw that person into the team with superstar players. and stop acting like little brother, okay? And you could say, well, if they're born into a Cubs team, there's no way that they would come to the Sox. Ask Sean Anderson of CHGO. He was born into a Cubs family, Sox fan. Why? 2005. If you build it, they will come. And you want obviously a deep-pocketed new owner, who also understands owning a baseball team is not part of the investment portfolio, except for maybe with the 78, but a vanity project where you want to have the best looking team among that billionaires club. And the problem for Jerry is, yes, and for Jerry, this is a vanity project, but he's become lazy with it. And he pines for an era of baseball that is just long gone. I mean, the only thing that's going to save this club in the interim is someone finally convincing Jerry that Branch Rickey and Eddie Stanky are long gone and that David Eckstein did not beat teams on his own. And sometimes you got to bite that bullet and pay the going rate for premium talent, because not only does it make you competitive, but it also draws fans. Okay? Draw in people. I'm going to talk about during the Kids Can Play era in the third segment about Magglio Ordonez. He drew people in. We liked watching him. But you got to have someone with enough gravitas to convince the owner that if you will not spend, you can still field competitive teams by investing in analytics, scouting, and development. Stop acting like that's a bad thing. The Guardians, Rays, and Brewers are all doing very well and not breaking the bank by doing this, and the fan base is happy. And as long as it's not a school night, for example, in the Brewers case, people show up. It's amazing. And maybe Chris gets that guy. And everydayers, you would know that I discussed that with James Fox a couple of weeks ago about the scouting department overhaul. And if Getz maybe might be the right person to convince Jerry to make the investment to operate like these effective small market teams. But it remains to be seen, can he hire the right people? And also, as my buddy Bez said on last Thursday's show, that takes time to see the return. And the ironic thing is, time is going to be our only saving grace in terms of one of the known certainties in life, catching up with Jerry Reinsdorf. Speaking of time, it took nearly 2 months for someone on the active roster to finally overtake Paul DeJong's team lead in homers. Let's discuss how that piece of context is another example of the team's sad state next on Locked On White Sox. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right, only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 2 weeks of free W's left. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because it's gone when September ends. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in most states, including Illinois, Indiana, and Wisconsin. And I've told you about my buddy on my text chain. He lives behind the Cheddar Curtain, so he uses PrizePicks to get his picks in and loves it because of how easy it is to play. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't need to win to receive that $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And the White Sox and Los Angeles Angels play game 2 of a 3-game set tonight. The first pitch is at 8:38 p.m. Central Standard Time. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, follow or subscribe to the show on wherever you get your podcasts, as Locked On White Sox is available on places such as Apple and Spotify. Again, I like to think I'm an excellent audio companion when you're mowing the lawn or sitting in traffic, especially if you're having to go into the city and you're on the Kennedy in that eternal construction. I'd like to think my words are soothing and maybe challenging and maybe entertaining. And maybe I'm just someone that you can scream at and be like, shut up, Welter. I'm stuck in traffic. Ah. Either way, feel free to subscribe to the show as it's also available via podcast. All right, here's a concept. Hit a bunch of home runs And that usually leads to a win. I know, it's crazy. And that's what the White Sox did last night to win their third straight with an 8-4 victory over the Los Angeles Angels. We're living in a world, folks, where the White Sox have a win streak. That's right. It took them basically 2 months to finally win back-to-back games as they, won 2 against the Oakland A's. Also took them 2 months to win a series when they beat the Oakland A's 2 out of 3. And now they have a win streak for the first time since late June. And could it go longer? I don't want to push it. But that's right. Your Chicago White Sox have a win streak thanks in part to hitting the long ball. I mean, think about it. Against the A's, Gavin Sheets, he had a couple home runs, And last night, they hit some more home runs. Not Gavin Sheets, but, the White Sox crushed the ball. I mean, it's a novel concept that if you hit home runs, it's instant offense. And the lack of power is one of the reasons on the 10 commandment sized tablets that the White Sox are still 6 defeats away from taking the 1962 New York Mets record for season futility. Try saying that season futility fast 3 times. But even sadder still is Andrew Benintendi finally took the team lead in home runs last night after crushing 2 home runs. And you could say, why is it sad that happened? Well, he needed to hit a 3-run homer and a solo shot to finally overtake Paul DeJong for the team lead. Paul DeJong was traded on July 30th, and his 18 home runs led the team in dingers for almost 2 months. That's why it's sad. I mean, just think about the sad state of the White Sox that Paul DeJong was off the team for almost 7 weeks, and he still led the team in home runs until yesterday. And it took Benintendi hitting 12 post All-Star break home runs to get there. Otherwise, it was a long slog for someone to even threaten DeJong in terms of the team lead. Andrew Vaughn did get there last night as he hit a solo shot, and that just tied DeJong. But seriously, there is no excuse for the Sox to be this bad at hitting home runs when guaranteed rate field plays to power. And I get it, when the wind blows in, it's hard to put the ball over the fence there. People forget that the wind also does blow in at guaranteed rate field, much like it does at Wrigley Field. But it feels like the Sox roster construction, especially since 2022, has been afraid to be a power lineup. Because obviously one of the drawbacks of being a power-focused team is you can go through power droughts. I've seen it. And then that makes scoring runs very, very hard. But on the flip side, not hitting any home runs at all can lead to a terrible offense. And that's one of the many reasons why the Sox have been historically awful. And the Sox are dead last in dingers right now with 123. They have hit 38 home runs since the All-Star break. 38. All right, you want some context? The Yankees, who lead the league in home runs and are in first place in the AL East, by the way, they've hit 80 since the All-Star break. The Orioles, who are in second in the AL East and second in the league, have hit 69. The Diamondbacks, who are fourth in the league. And why am I mentioning them? It's because assistant GM Josh Barfield came from there. It's kind of, you kind of get the feeling that the Sox might be trying to put together a combination of a Cleveland Guardians starting pitching rotation and an Arizona Diamondbacks lineup. Well, they've hit 91 bombs post All-Star break. 91. You need power in today's run scoring environment, even if scoring is down. And I know people romanticize about 2005 and the small ball, the Ozzie ball, but the White Sox hit 200 home runs that year. You need to hit home runs when you play a guaranteed rate field. Last season, the Sox ranked 20th in home runs, and nearly a quarter of them came from Luis Robert Jr.'s 38 and Jake Berger's 25. And Jake Berger finished second in the team, and he was traded at the deadline. Remember 2022's power drain with just 149? That was 22nd in the league. And Vaughn led the team with 17. let's see. Something happened in 2021. Somebody was hired and then he's been still around the team. Oh, yeah. Tony La Russa. And I remember Ken Rosenthal wrote in The Athletic about how Tony loves to put the ball on the ground. Get Tony out of this organization for that reason. You cannot keep putting the ball on the ground in today's baseball. And especially, again, you play at Guaranteed Rate Field. You should be in the top 10 in home runs every single year there. And you got to go all the way back to 2014 for the last time the Sox were in the top 10 in the league in home runs. And you could be saying, well, getting power costs money. Well, you don't really actually have to break the bank to get that power. In 2014, you had Jose Abreu, Dion Viciedo, Adam Dunn, and Tyler Flowers in the top 4 in home runs. Not exactly $100 million players there. And it's just funny that the past 10 years, former GM Rick Hahn kept saying, ball go far, team go far. And yet the team was always terrible at hitting the ball far. And one reason I believe this team has been awful at developing power. And if one change is needed, one of the suggested changes is the Sox need a hitting guru, much like they have a pitching guru in Brian Bannister. Well, then that hitting guru has to emphasize hit the ball deep, launch the ball. And I keep saying an ideal lineup for the White Sox is 5 power hitters and then 3 on-base bat-to-ball guys. You might call them contact guys. Fine, they can be somewhere in between. But guys that can get on base with speed that cause havoc on the base paths. And then a defensive catcher who has some pop. And you could say, where did I develop this hypothesis? Look at the last good teams that the White Sox had. 1993. Lance Johnson, you had Ozzie Guillen, Joey Cora, guys that could run the bases. And then you had a whole bunch of power led by Frank Thomas. 2000, Ray Durham at the top of the lineup. And then a whole bunch of power. 2005, Scott Podsednik and Tadahito Iguchi at the top of the lineup. And then a whole bunch of power. That's what plays well to Guaranteed Rate Field. Now, it may not have to be at the top of the lineup, but again, if you can get those guys and then a defensive catcher with pop, Ron Karkovice in 1993, AJ Pierzynski in 2005, that is what plays well to the ballpark you play 81 games in. And guess what? Hitting home runs is still in vogue. Yet the teams keep getting constructed to being too cute because heaven forbid you have a week where hitting home runs is hard. And again, that's why you also have the 3 on-base guys. And then you teach those power guys that if you have a 2-strike count, that's when you go for a contact swing. Or keep the line moving and try to work a walk. That's what would be ideal. That's my hypothesis, and I'm sticking to it. Speaking of power and working a walk, Magglio Ordonez was part of the Kids Can Play era that I discussed yesterday. And since I have a guest on tomorrow, there's going to be no Way Back Wednesday segment. So let's do a Throwback Tuesday and show some love for Mags next on Locked On White Sox. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, FanDuel has something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And I've always said FanDuel is excellent for futures, props, and then parlays. If you have enough evidence on who to lock in as your pick for the World Series winner, FanDuel has some good lines where you can even triple a $10 bet on the plus 320 Los Angeles Dodgers, or even $10 on the New York Yankees at plus 500. That would yield you $50. And like I said, I think FanDuel is amazing for their props. They got great lines that you should always take a look at. And as I said, I got another buddy on the text chain. One of the things he loves to do with FanDuel is he likes to put in the bets that he knows that is going to win, or that he's very confident. And then he throws in another little, maybe $5 bet on, say, is a game going to go into overtime? Because there's a good line on there to maybe double, triple your money. And it just makes watching the game that much more fun if that actually happens. So just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sports book. And the White Sox and Los Angeles Angels play game 2 of a 3-game set tonight. The first pitch is at 8:38 p.m. Central Standard Time. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Welcome back into Locked On White Sox. I am your host, Todd Welter. Shout out to all my everydayers. Thank you for sticking with me this long. Again, tell your family, tell your friends, especially if they're fellow White Sox fans. Tune into the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if they say, well, I've checked out on the Sox, I'm apathetic. There's nothing wrong with checking in every now and again. You know, I'm here. That's what I'm here for. One of my goals is to be here for you if you want to just check back in and say, hey, do the White Sox still suck? And I can say, yes, they do. And here's why. And then you can go about your day. That's all. 1 second. All right. Everydayers will probably remember me talking about the Kids Can Play era yesterday and how GM Ron Schuler sold the hope of young players after that infamous white flag trade. And trust me, he sold that hope any chance he could get. And one of the players that proved he was worth giving at bats during the Kids Can Play era, especially after the white flag trade, was Magglio Ordonez. And I really hope Ryan Ramos has the hitting career Ordonez has. Now, I know Ramos plays third, but he might be moving to the outfield next season. But they both, at least in terms of body type, remind me a little bit of, Ramos kind of reminds me of Ordonez. And the last time I had a cautiously optimistic feeling that I have with Ramos is with Ordonez, and Magglio had a fine career with the White Sox. Too bad it took him exiting the team for the Sox to win the World Series, but he had a great career that I think is sometimes overlooked. I mean, Mags flashed some potential in 1997 when he debuted and played in 21 games. He had a 319, 338, 580 slash line along with 4 home runs. I mean, it would be great to see Brian Ramos. Obviously would have had that, but again, the pitching environment's obviously a little different, but it would be great to see one of these young hitters that have come up show us that slash line, show us that little glimpse instead of just flash. He finished 5th in Rookie of the Year voting with a 282 average, 14 home runs, and the lowest OPS of his Sox career, 741 in 1998. Then he became a star in 1999 as he made 3 straight All-Star appearances. During that 3-year period, he crushed 93 home runs and won a Silver Slugger. In 2002, he did not make the All-Star team, but he did crush a career-high 38 dingers, and he won a Silver Slugger. In 2003, he made the All-Star team again with a 317, 380, 546 slash line. Injuries limited him to just 52 games in 2004, and that effectively ended his Sox tenure as Ordonez signed with Detroit, and the Sox replaced him with Jermaine Dye. Obviously, Dye helped the Sox win the World Series the next year, while Mags did get to the World Series in 2006 with the Tigers. However, he missed out on that ring as the St. Louis Cardinals pulled off that improbable upset. But he did make 2 more All-Star games for the Tigers. And the thing that I think will always be overlooked about Magglio is how good he was at getting on base. He could slug, as he did crush 187 dingers for the Sox on the South Side in 8 seasons, but he also had a career 364 on-base percentage. I think that's something that totally gets overlooked. The other legacy Ordonez brings is he brought stability to right field after years of trying stopgaps like Dan Pasqua and Ellis Burks and Darren Jackson and Danny Tartabull. I mean, think about it. For 11 seasons, the Sox solved their right field issue with Ordonez and then Jermaine Dye. And then since Dye retired in 2009, it has been back to just piecemealing right field together. But think about the White Sox lineups when they had stability with Ordonez and Dye. They were much more competitive. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it covered every single day. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about who should be considered the foundational players of this rebuild with Beef Loaf from the108.com. I'm looking forward to that conversation. And obviously, feel free to leave comments about today's topics regarding Rob Manfred not saving us from Jerry Reinsdorf, the lack of power the team has, and the appreciation for Magglio Ordonez. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me at LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day. See you tomorrow.